All right, so get this.
Okay.
Today we're diving deep into not one, not two,
Oh.
but 3 versions of the same fighting game character.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 3 flavors of Kakyoin from the game Heritage for the Future.
Interesting.
And we're not just going to, like, compare how they look, you know?
Right.
It's about how even small changes can totally change how you actually play the character.
Yeah, this is actually super fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Because it really gives you a peek behind the curtain of how fighting game designers think.
Oh, yeah.
When they're remixing one concept to create wildly different play styles.
So if you're into fighting games, or if you're just curious about how games get designed, buckle up, baby, because we're going deep.
It's a great example of how, like, just small tweaks could have this ripple effect on a character's whole strategy and, like, how they match up against everyone else.
So let's start with the OG.
Okay.
The one that started it all. Original Kakyoin.
Yeah.
This guy is often seen as the top dog, even banned in tournaments.
Right.
And you know what makes him so strong? It's this move.
What is it?
Called 214x Hierophant Field, but everyone just calls it Nets.
Nets.
It's considered one of the best moves in the entire game, even though when it first came out, people didn't even know what to do with it.
Well, it's because they're deceptively powerful, right?
Yeah,
it's like,
they look so simple.
Yeah, they're invisible nets on the screen.
Oh, the invisible part.
They can trap your opponent.
Yeah.
If you catch them, it sets up guaranteed combos.
Oh.
It can even cause a stand crash, which is like a stun, basically.
So the invisible part really throws a wrench in things.
Absolutely.
Like, you're not just hitting the move, you're
remembering where you place those nets, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like
it's like setting traps.
setting traps, yeah. Psychological warfare.
Oh, I love it.
It's a beautiful thing.
And it makes your opponent second guess every approach, right?
Totally, yeah. They were constantly guessing.
Yeah.
But the real strength of nets, though, isn't just the combos, it's how it gives Kakyoin control over the pace of the match.
Okay, so, like, break that down for us. Why is that so powerful?
Well, think about it. With nets, Kakyoin creates this, like, suffocating offense and defense at the same time.
Oh, wow.
He can use them to pressure you from a distance or lock down an area, making it dangerous to approach.
Yeah.
And the opponent has this dilemma.
Yeah.
Do they risk getting close and getting caught?
Oh, yeah.
Or hang back
and
let Kakyoin dictate the term?
It's like a constant game of chess where he's always one step ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the source even mentions that nets affect, like, his entire matchup spread against the rest of the cast.
Yeah.
Like, it makes certain characters almost impossible to play against him.
It definitely raises questions about game balance.
Yeah.
Some might say it's cheap, right, to have a move like that.
Yeah, totally.
But I think instead of just saying cheap,
Yeah.
it's an opportunity to look deeper.
Ooh, I like
The game design, like, what makes this move so powerful?
Right.
How does it fit into the overall game mechanics?
Yeah.
It can lead to really interesting discussions.
Instead of getting frustrated,
Exactly.
you can try to learn something from it. So, like, on one hand, people might say nets are overpowered. On the other hand, you got to admire the strategic depth that they create.
Yeah, Kakyoin's power isn't just about damage.
Yeah.
It's about manipulating your opponent's options.
Yeah.
Turning the game into this fascinating strategic puzzle.
All right, so we've got the original, the master of control with his invisible nets.
Uh-huh.
But now let's talk about new Kakyoin.
Okay.
Now, at first glance, you might think he's just like
It's just a worse version.
a weaker copy of the original.
Yeah.
But hold on.
Hold on.
It's not that simple.
It's not.
He's not a downgrade, but more like a remix.
A remix.
Bringing his own strengths to the table.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
New Kakyoin's ground dash, for example, has been changed.
Okay.
So instead of moving straight forward,
Yeah.
it sends him diagonally upwards.
Okay.
And you might think, okay, so what?
Right.
It's just a slightly different animation.
Well, this changes everything.
Really?
About how he plays.
You're telling me that one dash animation can change the entire game?
Yes.
That's wild, but I'm ready to hear why.
Okay.
Why is this seemingly small change?
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
That diagonal dash unlocks crazy mix-up potential and offensive pressure that the original Kakyoin just doesn't have.
Okay.
He can approach from these angles you wouldn't expect.
So it's not even just about the dash itself.
It's about how unpredictable it makes new Kakyoin.
Exactly.
The opponent's always on edge.
Always on edge.
Yeah.
And that unpredictability is key to what's called a vortex.
Ooh, a vortex.
In fighting games.
Yeah.
Which is basically when you trap your opponent
in
this cycle of guessing games with limited ways to escape.
It's like he's got you.
Yeah.
Right where he wants you. There's no way out.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's really tough.
Now, the source did mention something about New Kakyoin's defense. It's not as strong.
Not as strong as the Uber. Oh, okay.
He's a glass cannon.
Oh, I see.
Capable of huge damage.
Yeah.
But also quite fragile.
Oh, so high risk, high reward.
High risk, high reward.
But when you master him...
Oh, yeah. It's like a monster.
A force to be reckoned with?
A monster.
Okay, so we've got the Master of Control.
Yeah.
And the high risk, high reward remix. Now let's move on to the one that I think takes the cake for originality.
Rubber Soul.
Rubber Soul.
He's probably the most different.
The most different.
From the original Kakyoin.
Totally.
And what's really interesting is that he's what they call a passive stand character.
Passive stand?
Now, if you're not familiar with Heritage for the Future,
right,
a passive stand means...
It doesn't appear constantly.
Right, it's not.
It's more like a tool that they can summon.
Okay.
And dismiss strategically.
Okay.
And passive stands in this game are generally seen as weaker.
Yeah.
Less effective.
Okay.
But Rubber Soul breaks the mold in some really fascinating ways.
Yeah.
He's become surprisingly strong.
And one of the things that makes him stand out is his throw.
His throw.
Not only does it do the most damage out of all the throws, it's also the only one that builds meter.
Oh, interesting.
Now, for those not in the know, meter is like that special resource you build up to use powerful moves.
Super moves.
So it adds like another layer. To Rubber Soul's playstyle.
Yeah, his throws aren't just about damage.
Right.
It's about resource management.
It's like he's getting rewarded for doing something that's normally considered basic.
Exactly.
In a fighting game.
I love it.
And speaking of important mechanics.
Yeah.
We can't forget about his super move. The Coconut Backbreaker.
Coconut Backbreaker.
Amazing name.
Amazing name.
And it has this weird quirk where it's inconsistently touchable.
Oh, really?
Now, touchable means...
You can escape the move.
Yeah, if you time it, right?
Right.
But with the super, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. That seems kind of random.
So this actually comes from a glitch.
Oh, really?
In the game's code.
What?
It wasn't intentional.
Oh, wow.
But it gave him this...
Oh, so a happy little accident.
A happy accident.
But it makes him more interesting to play, right?
Absolutely.
It gives him an edge.
An edge.
That you don't see with other characters.
Like a wild card.
Yeah.
You don't know what to expect.
Okay, so we've got a glimpse of each of these Kakyoins.
Yeah.
And their quirks.
Yeah.
I'm dying to dig deeper into, like, their overall game plans, how they actually approach a match.
Right.
It sounds like they've got drastically different strategies.
We've only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
We've only scratched the surface.
That's true.
There's so much more to unpack here.
Okay.
So next we'll get into how these subtle mechanical differences translate into completely different approaches to the game.
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
So we've met our three Kakyoins.
Yep.
The original, the remix, and the wild card.
Right.
But now let's talk strategy.
Okay.
How do these guys actually play? What are their goals? What are their strengths, their weaknesses?
Right.
Let's start with original Kakyoin.
Okay.
He's all about those nets, right? But how does he actually use them to control the game?
Well, his whole game plan revolves around control, right?
Okay.
He uses those invisible nets to dictate the pace of the match, force his opponent to react to his every move.
It's like he's playing chess while the other guy's playing checkers.
Exactly. Yeah, he's always one step ahead.
So it's not even just about setting traps. Yep. It's about using those traps to, like, control the entire flow of the match.
The flow, yeah. And what makes it even tougher is that he can cancel a lot of his normal attacks into nets.
Oh, okay.
So in fighting game terms, that's called a special cancel.
Okay.
Basically, it lets him transition from a normal attack into a special move.
Right.
Seamlessly. So he can keep the pressure on.
So there's this constant threat. That any attack could suddenly turn into a net setup. Leading into a full combo.
Absolutely. And the source even mentions. That some characters literally can't get rid of the nets.
Oh, wow. That sounds brutal.
It creates some tough matchups.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, so how does New Kakyoin change things up?
Well, New Kakyoin...
He doesn't have those super strong nets, right?
He does. No. His nets are weaker, and he can only use them in what's called stand-on mode.
Okay.
Meaning he can't move while they're active.
Oh, okay.
But what he lacks in zoning, he makes up for in pure offensive pressure.
Okay.
And crazy mix-ups.
So instead of keeping his distance and controlling space...
He wants to get in your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, and force you to guess.
Okay.
His diagonal dash gives him so many options.
Right.
It works beautifully with his overhead attacks.
Now, just for our listeners who aren't super familiar with fighting games, an overhead attack is like a move that comes from above.
Right.
Forcing you to block high.
Block high.
And then a low attack comes in low.
You got it.
You can't block both at the same time.
Exactly.
So when he's mixing those up,
it's a nightmare.
With his unpredictable dash.
Nightmare to deal with.
Yeah, it sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, it's like a whirlwind of attacks coming at you from every angle.
And remember, he doesn't have the same defensive options as original Kakyoin. So he's got to make every hit count.
He's got to make it count.
One wrong guess.
Yeah, and he could be in big trouble.
He's walking a tightrope.
He is.
He's got to be aggressive, got to land those hits, but also got to avoid getting hit himself.
Absolutely.
It sounds like a character that really rewards players who are good at, like...
reading their opponent.
Yeah, reading their opponent, predicting what they're going to do next.
Yeah, absolutely.
So high skill.
High skill, but high reward.
Yeah, but when played well.
Oh, yeah.
A force to be reckoned with.
Devastating.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these, like... small changes really do add up to completely different characters.
Completely different.
But we can't forget about our passive stand character, Rubber Soul.
Right.
He doesn't have those oppressive nets.
No.
He doesn't have that crazy mix-up potential.
Right.
So how does he even get things done? How does he even get close enough to land a hit?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
He's got limitations, right? His movement isn't great, so he has to play a bit more cautiously.
Okay.
He has to rely on his normal attacks and his counter.
So he's a bit more, like, defensive.
Yeah, more reactive.
Reactive, waits for his opponent to make a mistake, then capitalizes on it.
Exactly. He's a master of punishing mistakes.
Okay.
His counter move is one of the strongest in the game.
Wow.
And he's got this move called a guard cancel.
Hold on. Guard cancel. That's another fighting game term our listeners might not know.
Oh, right. Good catch.
Yeah.
So a guard cancel is basically a special move that you can do while you're blocking.
Okay.
To push your opponent away.
Okay.
Create some space.
So it's a defensive tool.
Yeah, but it can lead to offensive opportunities.
So he can use this to get out of sticky situations.
Yep.
And then go on the offense himself.
Exactly.
That sounds like a game changer.
It is. It is. And speaking of offense, don't forget about his okizeme.
Oh, yeah, okizeme, another fighting game term.
Right.
Basically, what you do after you knock your opponent down to keep the pressure on them.
There you go.
And Rubber Soul's okizeme is top tier.
Top tier.
Once he gets a knockdown, he can put his opponent in a really tough spot.
Absolutely.
With high-low mix-ups, throws, command grabs.
All of it.
Now, for our newcomers, a command grab is a special type of throw that you can't break free from as easily.
Right.
And high-low mix-ups, again, we're talking about those overhead and low attacks.
You got it.
So he's using those same mind game tactics, but he's doing it after he knocks you down.
After he knocks you down.
Which is even scarier.
Absolutely, yeah. It keeps the opponent guessing.
So while he might not have, like, the raw speed or those zoning tools like original Kakyoin, he makes up for it with his defensive strength.
Yes.
And his ability to create, like, absolute chaos once he gets in close.
Chaos.
He's a patient predator.
He is, waiting for his moment to strike.
Yeah.
Forces the opponent to play his game.
Yeah.
He's methodical, waits for his openings, and then explodes with devastating pressure and mix-ups.
This is so cool. We've got 3 characters, all based on the same character design.
I know, right?
But completely different play styles.
Completely different
approaches to the game.
It's amazing.
I love how subtle changes to their mechanics create this, like, ripple effect impacting everything about how they play.
Absolutely.
It really makes you appreciate how much depth there is to fighting game design.
I couldn't agree more.
It speaks to the creativity of the developers.
Absolutely.
And the dedication of the players who, like, discover and master these unique characters.
And master, yeah, it's awesome.
You know, the source did mention that original Kakyoin is often banned in tournaments.
Right, right.
It makes sense, considering how powerful he is.
Yeah.
But it also raises some interesting questions about game balance, don't you think?
It does. It does. Like, on one hand, you want a balanced game where a variety of characters can thrive.
Right.
But you also don't want to stifle creativity and limit players' options.
Yeah.
It's a tough question.
It's a tough balance.
No easy answers.
And what's really fascinating is that the source also points out that new Kakyoin and Rubber Soul, who were initially considered weaker characters, have actually risen in the ranks.
They have?
Thanks to players who dedicated themselves to, like, mastering their unique play styles.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's what I love about the fighting game community. It's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Always experimenting, analyzing, pushing the boundaries.
It's almost like they're scientists.
Scientists, yeah.
Testing hypotheses, refining their understanding of the game.
That's a great analogy.
And it's inspiring to see how dedicated players can elevate characters who are initially like overlooked or dismissed as weak.
Overlooked, yeah, absolutely.
It just goes to show that even characters with limitations can have this hidden potential.
Hidden potential?
Waiting to be unlocked.
I love that.
Okay, we talked a lot about their strengths and weaknesses, but what about their like impact? What kind of mark have these characters left on the game?
That's a great question.
And its community.
It leads to some really interesting insights about the evolution of fighting games.
Okay.
And the communities that surround them.
Okay.
So let's dive into that next.
You know, it's amazing to see how much impact dedicated players can have.
Oh, yeah.
Not just on individual characters, but on the entire game itself.
Absolutely.
Like, they find these, like, hidden gems, these strategies no one else thought of, and they completely shake things up.
Yeah, and it speaks to the, like, collaborative nature of fighting games, right? It's not just the developers making the game.
Right.
It's the players taking those tools and like building something new, unexpected.
It's like those open world games.
Yeah.
Where the developers create the world.
Yeah.
But it's the players who decide how they want to explore it, what stories they want to tell.
And in a way, every fighting game match is a story.
Oh, I like that.
You've got these characters with their own unique abilities, their strengths and weaknesses, and it's up to the players to like craft the narrative through their actions.
Through their decisions, their strategies.
Exactly.
Sometimes those stories involve characters that were initially underestimated. Characters like new Kakyoin and Rubber Soul rising to the top.
Like the underdog story.
Yeah, it's like the classic underdog story that we all love, where the unlikely hero proves everyone wrong.
It's inspiring.
It really is.
Yeah.
It reminds us that there's always more to learn, more to discover.
Even in games we think we know well.
Yeah, there's always room for innovation, for creative expression.
Totally.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about the mechanics, the strategies, the impact these three Kakyoins have had on the game.
Yeah.
But what are like the key takeaways you hope our listeners walk away with?
Yeah, that's a great question.
What's the big picture stuff we can learn from these three characters?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is the power of subtle changes.
Yeah.
We saw how something as small as tweaking a dash animation or adding a unique property to a throw can completely change characters' play style and their role in the game.
It's like that butterfly effect.
It is. It is.
One tiny flap of a butterfly's wings can cause a hurricane on the other side of the world.
Exactly. And another takeaway is how limitations can actually breed creativity.
Oh, yeah. Rubber Soul.
Rubber Soul, right?
The passive stand.
He had to work around those limitations.
And he becomes this incredibly unique and powerful character because of it.
Exactly. It's like those cooking shows.
Oh, yeah.
Where they give the chefs like a basket of weird ingredients.
Yes.
And they got to come up with something amazing.
And it's always the best dish.
Yes, yeah.
When they have those limitations.
Limitations force us to be creative, to find those like out-of-the-box solutions.
Yeah, I love that.
And finally, I think it's important to remember that even characters who are perceived as cheap or overpowered,
like original Kakyoin in the Nets,
can be fascinating from a strategic perspective.
Totally. They can be frustrating to play against, sure.
Right.
But you can't deny the skill involved.
Absolutely.
Like the mind games involved in using them effectively.
And instead of dismissing them as broken, we can analyze their design, their strengths and weaknesses, appreciate the depth they bring to the game.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
It has.
I feel like I've leveled up my fighting game knowledge.
You too.
And I've gained a whole new appreciation for the depth and complexity of game design.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It really is.
How much passion goes into making these games that we love.